It's such a pleasure to be here today. I've loved doing these webinars with WeWork over the years and being a part of the community. So thank you all so much for having me. And thank you to those who are joining from Europe and the Middle East and maybe APAC. I know it's pretty late over there. I'm based in New York City, so it's early for me. I've had 2 coffees already. I hope that I don't talk too fast. But before we get started, I would love to hear from everyone in the Zoom webinar chat. So not the QA, but in the chat. What stage your company is at. Are you a startup? Are you a small business? Are you a scaling company? I love to hear how everyone is doing and what stage you're at so I can guide that to the folks. And Esther said, be sure to chat to everyone instead of just to the panelists. So we've got a small business, we've got a startup. Awesome. We'll keep bringing those in. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. And also one thing that I like to do is share my email address with you all so you can chat with me afterwards. So I just sent that to the group. It's asibley@hubspot.com. So a little bit about me. I currently run HubSpot for Startups marketing program, so helping thousands of startups and small businesses scale. I've built several startup programs in the past and scaled those businesses, most recently at HubSpot, and really enjoyed my time here. My right-hand man is a dog named Bentley. He will likely come into the video chat during this webinar because it is his walk time and he is very excited to get outside. So today we're going to cover some awesome stuff all around demand generation and content and SEO. I'm going to start with a really brief overview of SEO. SEO stands for search engine optimization. If you're a marketer or not on the call, it's really important to have a basic understanding of SEO and at the very least understand that it's something you should focus on when developing your business. We're also going to talk about how to develop that content. That can be the hardest part and it's critical to generate leads. But really, I have some tips here to help small businesses and startups really do that well. What to write about, and then probably second is most important is how to distribute that content to get as many leads as you possibly can for your business. So real quick, I'm going to touch base on something we call the inbound methodology here at HubSpot. The inbound methodology is a method of attracting and engaging and delighting people to grow a business that provides value and builds trust. As technology shifts, inbound guides a company to do business in a human and helpful way. So this is something that HubSpot fundamentally believes is the right way to do business and to help people move through that buyer's journey. And what that looks like if you're a visual person is this lovely flywheel right here, with your customers, with your end user at the center. They are part of every single part of that journey. In attracting people to your business through the right content, in engaging them through content that your sales team and your internal team is using, and through delighting them with helpful content throughout. So today we're really going to focus on that first part of the flywheel, that attracting people into your business, to your website, to buy your products or your services. So first, we're going to touch briefly on SEO. Now, I am no SEO expert. I can get the basics down and I can optimize a piece of content to get found, but I have a couple resources at the end if you really want to dive deep here in SEO. There's 2 things you need to do to make sure that you are optimized for SEO. Again, this is search engine optimization to get found by people on the internet. Number 1, your website needs to be optimized to get found. It increases your location and search results by optimizing the way that your site is set up, as well as the words you have on your site. It increases your credibility. As a startup or a small business, you're probably doing something new and different in the world, and people are looking to you as a founder, a founding team, a leader at that company to have credibility in that space. And it also increases something called domain authority. So as your site gets more traffic, as it has higher quality content on it, Google and other search engines start to increase that domain authority. And as that number increases, you will start to get more and more traffic because Google and other search engines trust you more and more. So on the website side, it's important to have your basics down, the website set up properly. I've got some resources at the end to go through those. On the content side, where we're going to talk a lot more today, it's also really important to optimize your content to get found because it drives a lot more traffic. I have some stats later. It builds a network of new prospects. So as you're attracting new, different people to your site, they're sharing your content into their audience. They're sharing it with their colleagues, and you're starting to get this network effect. And it also increases your credibility. How many times do we all search the internet now for reviews, answers to questions we have when buying pretty much anything, from something really large like a car all the way down to a t-shirt? We use the internet to find out who has the most credibility. So on the content side, the most important piece to start with is figuring out what your customer or your potential customer, if you don't have a customer yet, you might be, haven't developed that customer audience yet, to figure out what they're searching for. So a couple quick tips here. Interview customers, potential customers, and prospects, and hold one-to-one conversations and send interviews. If you're truly just starting out, get a handful of people who you think might buy your product and pay them $75, $100 to answer your questions just to understand who they are. Look through any customer communications or common FAQs, frequently asked questions that you're getting. This can be through support, this can be through social media, wherever you are today, based on how many customers you have, look for these FAQs. Talk to your sales folks, or if it's just you, and ask for trends and questions. What are people asking for when they come into your store, when they call you, when they're searching online and chatting into your company? Look at the customer data you have collected, if you have any there, to see what they're purchasing, what are their pain points. There are some really great AI tools. I will sprinkle out tool suggestions throughout this whole presentation. Obviously, it's being recorded, so you can find it later. But look through AI tools like Atomic AI to analyze what's working on your website. What buttons are being clicked? What words are people hovering on? Look at your product vision from yourself, from your founding team, and what are you looking to solve 1, 3, and 5 years out? Those are the keywords that you want to start creating content for now so that you are building up to where you want to be. Oops, sorry. Okay, moving on to actual keyword research. If you have any existing content, look at what keywords are associated with those pages. Using Google's related searches at the bottom of any keyword search, you can find additional suggestions. That's a quick tip I use a lot still today. Using Google Trends, you can see what are hot topics in your industry. Using a tool called BuzzSumo, you can understand articles that already get high engagement around a given topic, not just yours, but other competitors and other folks in your space. There are some non-free keyword tools, like SEMrush is one of my favorites to check out top keywords to rank for. And then there's the Google Search Console and Google Keyword Planner, my apologies, in order to continue to figure out what keywords your audience is looking for. So I've given you a lot of ideas on finding keywords. You probably have a very long list, or you will if you sit down and brainstorm. I don't expect you to write content about all of these to help you find leads, but these are a couple tips in order to help you get started on what you should be writing about. There's a couple more resources in depth, and this is the end of where I will be talking about SEO and moving on to actual content. But if you're interested in diving deep, HubSpot for Startups has a kit called 2020 SEO Kit for Startups and Entrepreneurs. If you download it in a month, it will be updated for 2021. And we also have a really awesome course through the HubSpot Academy on SEO training. There's a lot in there. This one is the most basic kind of overarching one that I suggest you check out, but really helpful resources in case you or your team want to dive deeper. All right, now we're going to get into the fun stuff, developing that content that we just talked about. So you've got this long list of keywords, you know what you want to create. Let's talk a little bit about what content marketing is and how it really helps support lead generation, demand generation. Those words are the same, and they mean pretty much the same thing. Content marketing is a marketing program that centers on creating, publishing, and distributing content for your target audience, usually online, with the goal is to attract new customers. Why do we do content marketing? It costs a lot less. Even in today's world, content marketing is getting 3 times more leads than paid search advertising, and it's also attracting higher quality content people as well. It also helps close deals. So while today we're talking all about that first part of the flywheel and attracting people, it also is going to help your sales team close those deals. 47% of buyers are viewing at least 3 to 5 pieces of content before they even want to engage with a sales rep. And more recently, I've actually been working very closely with our sales team, and the number of times sales reps use our content to engage with their prospects is many times a day. It also has a really long-term value. If you think about when you're creating content for lead generation, it has predictable and scalable cost-effective traffic and lead flow that doesn't rely on that budget. Once your budget dries up, your paid ads stop. But if you've developed this content over time on a blog, in a library, you're now getting continuous traffic. And lastly, it drives a lot more traffic. So this is a graphic that's roughly when we started creating content on the HubSpot for Startups team. And it's driving this traffic over the long term because of that network effect we talked about, where prospects are sharing it with their audiences and getting you more and more people, basically through word of mouth marketing. So now let's talk about what you should write about. So we've got that long list of keywords. And you want to make sure that everyone on your team who is in charge of creating that content is aware of who that persona is that you're writing for, their main pain points, and what you're trying to help them solve. So you know what your customer is trying to solve for, you know what they need, and you know this long list of keywords that you want to write for. Where should you write? Well, you've got limited time, so you really should write the topics that are in the middle of this Venn diagram, because these are the topics that will get started, that will get you that traffic, but will also solve for your customer. It serves many purposes for every piece of content you're putting out there. So the keywords you want to rank for from your SEO research, that's your number one list. The FAQs from your audience, from what your audience is asking for. And lastly, we haven't talked about this, what are the holes in your content library? Now, if you're starting at 0, you have no content, you have no library, so you can ignore this bottom piece. But if you have a library already and you're already getting some traffic to certain pieces, map those out by topic, by level, whatever it might be that's your 2x2 matrix, and just figure out where there's holes that you can fill in by creating new content that makes you the most credible person out there. So I've given you a lot of info. Let's talk about the specific steps to get here now. Step 1, we need to build topic clusters. I will talk about those in a moment, what that means. It might be a new word for most folks. Then you want to prioritize those clusters based on impact, decide on the content format, and build out that strong editorial calendar that is sustainable by your likely small team. So first, let's talk about topic clusters. So 5-10 years ago, it was all about long tail keywords for Google, developing content that hit exactly the keywords that people are searching for, that full sentence. Today, it's about topics. Google wants to see that you and your business are the expert in a topic. So let's talk about what that looks like. You build out this pillar topic, this concept in the middle, that's that dark blue piece. And then you have all these additional pieces of content that are related to that topic that we call the cluster content, and they all hyperlink to one another. It's a really great way to get your own links and credibility about this one topic. Now, one layer deeper, which I don't have a graphic for, is actually to get additional links from external sites, so backlinks into your content. There's a whole strategy around doing that, which we could talk about for hours. I won't get into too much detail right now. But the important part is for your business to start thinking about content as clusters of topics. So one quick example, as I said, I run our startups program, so we write a lot about entrepreneurship. We decided to do a pillar of content around entrepreneurship. That middle piece, that blue piece, the topic was how to build a business, how to be an entrepreneur, something very basic that someone would search for on Google that has high search traffic. But in reality, there's a ton of other content related to entrepreneurship that we also built these additional surrounding blog posts about, and they all link to one another. So we didn't try to attack every single topic in this one piece, but we did try to create all these additional pieces around that topic that all relate to one another. So now we are considered the experts, or at least we're trying to be, on this topic of entrepreneurship. Step 2, you need to start prioritizing based on 3 things. Now, if anyone has done PIE scoring, P-I-E, this is very similar. You look for the traffic potential. Which of these topics and topic clusters that you have decided to create have high search volume? That's an easy one to find on Google. Which one has the likelihood of ranking? So this one's a little bit more difficult. You can start to look at other people that are ranking for this topic. Go search for all of the titles you want to write about. Are those people who are ranking for it as well known as your business, have as much traffic as your business, have as awesome content as your business? Are you going to write this topic better? And lastly, look at the competition. Who is actually out there? How are they ranking? What is their domain authority? Once you've looked at the traffic potential, now we look at the customer need. That was that Venn diagram. Which of your topics are the #1 topics your customers are asking for that also drive a lot of traffic? And last but not least, the ease of creation. Can you and your team realistically do it and do it well? Is it a topic that you have enough expertise on that you could write it well and get it out there? So here's a reality check. You're an early stage business, some of you are small businesses, and you don't have the resources to create content. I think this problem is not just unique to startups and small businesses. Even my team today at HubSpot is out of resources. So this is a problem you're going to have throughout. The feedback I say to folks is that every single person at your business is a content creator. They all have a story to tell. They are there for some reason. They have decided to work with you on your venture for a reason because they're likely passionate about what they're doing, what you are doing. So every single person can create content. Here are some places I suggest you get started. Number one, you can look externally for writers. One of the ways that I've actually gotten a lot of great content and quickly is to look to the local college students, university students to have an internship, create user-generated content, ask your customers to make a video or a short post, and you can take that and turn that into something. There's some really great AI tools out there that can get your post 70, 80% of the way there. So it's automatically creating content based on what you've given them and what you've asked for. And last but not least, if you do have some budget, you can go to freelancers in order to create that content for you. Next suggestion, which is a unique one, is looking at looking to places with an existing audience. So Quora and Medium, and I'm sure there's a lot of other niche ones as well, depending on what your market you're in. Quora and Medium both have an audience already. There's people there, there's people asking questions, there's people reading. On the Quora side, people are asking questions about something that you're probably an expert on. You've started this business or you're on this founding team for some reason because you're passionate about the thing that you're doing. Go find people asking questions about that. Write up an answer. Get that post out there, link to your site, etc. That might be a blog post for you someday. You might have done the first draft of a blog post that you've also engaged with an audience on Quora. With Medium, it's a little bit more obvious. It is a blog and there's an audience there. So go create that content and put it on Medium as well. Now, there's some pros and cons of being on your site versus not. If you're on Medium, it kind of seems like a no-brainer. There's already an audience. Let me write about it. Write about my content. Absolutely. Link back to your site and get some traffic. Problem is, if you do nothing but Medium or Quora, you're never going to get that long-term effect that we talked about earlier of traffic to your site because that audience is in a different place than yours. So it's a great place to start, but it's also something you need to think about maybe eventually putting on your own site. And last but not least, and my favorite, is looking to your employees to create content as well. You should make it as easy as possible for them to write. Incentivize them, make them templates, give them examples and tools. Explain to them that them creating content is actually really good for the business. Show them how much traffic it drove or leads, but it's also really good for their personal brand to have that content live somewhere with their byline on it. At HubSpot, that's the approach we took. So over the years, and this is not exact, but over the years, we have developed a very strong content team. There's many, many people at HubSpot that create content today. But back when we founded in 2006, it was just Brian and Dharmesh creating that weekly content. They were writing a few blog posts a week. Then we hired our first marketer, and then we got to a blog post a day and an ebook a month. And then we started to scale up, and eventually all employees started being required to create content, or all marketers, I should say. I apologize. We hosted contests. In 2014, I won that contest for an infographic, which is always a way to get a lot of traffic. Infographics, not necessarily the highest quality leads coming in. Eventually, we stopped requiring everyone to write because we had a large enough content team to be creating this content. And then eventually we got really, really optimized with SEO. And where we are today is that every content piece that comes out of HubSpot is only created with the purpose of SEO in mind. So a couple quick tips here. I'm going to go through these quickly, but you can read these later. Tools for writing. If you need to get started on writing and you don't have the resources, start simple, focus on FAQs, like I said. What you did today, that's a great way that HubSpot's been able to create a lot of content because we're writing to marketers and sales reps, so we talk about what we did that day. There's a tool called Acrolinks to help you stay on brand. First draft with AI tools, first draft internally, create a shared Google Doc among folks at your company. Proofreading, a really great tool, is called Grammarly. And my favorite mantra is always be repurposing. So you write a blog post, turn that into 10 social posts, turn 3 blog posts into 1 ebook, turn it into a webinar. I bet I could make a blog post out of this webinar. And then my last tips on design really quickly. I'm no designer at all. These slides are beautifully made because HubSpot has a lovely template for me to use, making it easy for employees. But there's some great free photos tools like Unsplash and Pexels. And I love Canva for design, absolutely fabulous, as well as honestly using PowerPoint. You can do so much in PowerPoint. All right, so we're going to move on to the third part, my favorite part, what I've basically built my career around, which is distributing that content out to your audience to attract the right people. So you've developed really great content now. We've talked about the keywords that you want to write for. You have gotten that content in a place that you're ready to write it. Maybe it's in an outline, maybe it's in a blog post. You feel really good about it. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a blog, maybe it's a bunch of social posts. We need to talk about how to get it out there now. So we've already talked about this a lot. Your content is optimized for search. It means that it has the right keywords in it. It's going to be found. It's a topic cluster. It's really important to show Google that this is a great piece of content in your first few days. So you need to get as much traffic as you can in, I don't know, the first 48 hours or so in order to get that to rank even higher. It'll help you rank for months and years to come. Apologies there. So the first things first, let's use what you have. You have an internal team. Send out an internal notification to everyone at your company. Make it super easy for them to be your biggest advocates. Give them all the promotional assets. Give them talking points. Your sales team, your customer success team has bullet points that they can literally copy and paste and send out when they're talking to anyone at all. You can also tell them how to use this in order to engage with their prospects. Give them tweets, give them, I guess tweets are maybe not the main form anymore after I wrote this, but give them social posts that they can put out there, give them images, get them to post on whatever networks makes the most sense for your audience. If you're selling a B2C brand, make sure there's posts that you can put on Instagram and other tools and other social sites that folks are really using for your brand. Next is emailing your database. Now you might not have a large database yet, so we'll also talk about how to do this externally. But when you're emailing your internal database, whatever you have, you want to make sure that list is segmented for the right audience. If you have a small database and this is valuable for everyone, feel free to send it to your whole audience, but you want it to be in a really engaging way so you don't feel like you're spamming your audience. You also want to set up some email nurturing. So while you can do a one-off email to everyone, you also want to utilize this when people do certain things on your site. So nurturing people is what happens when someone views your pricing page and you want to email them about, hey, we saw you viewed your pricing page. Or let's say you've gone shopping on Macy's.com and you put something in your cart, but you didn't purchase it. You'll probably get an email in 24 hours saying, hey, did you forget something in your cart? That's all email nurturing. You want to create content that you can put in these email nurturing flows so you can continuously be engaging with your audience. Most importantly, especially for folks who have a very small audience to start, you want to optimize any email you create for sharing. Put buttons like share with your audience, share with your startups, share with your friends, which you can see in this graphic, to get them to share. You might want to even further incentivize that sharing. Share with your friends and get 5% off, or whatever it might be that helps add value to your business. And last but not least, if you do have a sales team who does have an audience, and you have an audience that they're selling to of prospects, make sales rep sequences for them. So a sequence is the same thing as a nurturing email, but it's what sales is sending out. So in this case, you might make a 3-part sequence with 3 emails that are already made for sales to use, and all sales has to do is copy and paste them and put them into their emails. Now, if you don't have an email database and you still want to get this out there, I encourage you to look into other paid marketing sources, like newsletters, et cetera, that have a very similar audience to who you're looking for. Now, I hesitate to go hard on paid marketing because it's something, as I mentioned earlier, that doesn't pay off in the long term. You get a bump and then you're done. But you do want to get started with that initial email database. So if you are starting from absolute scratch, feel free to put a little bit of money behind it. Next, post on social. So social media, your audience is there in various different channels. You should understand where they are. Where is that target buyer? Where is that persona? Are they on sites like Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they in more professional places? But create social posts that engage with your audience. And here I would encourage some paid marketing behind this at first. So a couple tips here. Post with images, get 55% more leads. So make sure when you're posting on these sites where possible, you put images in here. Learn when your audience engages the most. So we've done a ton of research. We've read a ton of blog posts and articles at HubSpot. We know that our audience is most engaging on Tuesdays and Thursdays, midday Eastern time, which means we're hitting Europe in the afternoon and the East Coast in the morning, East Coast of the United States. So we post our best lead generation content at those times. You can do the same research and figure out when your audience is. It might be wildly different. I've worked at startups where the best time to post is Saturday afternoons when folks are sitting on their couch, getting ready for their evenings. So find out when that audience is and don't just take my word for it, depending on who your audience is. I would promote on social media for a quick boost on the first day to just get more traffic, and a boost, as I mentioned, day one is really important. Encourage your employees to post your content. Like I said, they can reshare what's already in existence. They can post their own. And last but not least, on your social channels on the day you launch something, feel free to change those headers at the top to encourage people to check out what that post is. Next, use your website. So your website is viewed more than anything else that you have created. It should be your bread and butter. It should be your main piece of content that you've created. So use that website to promote your content. A couple places I like to put calls to action on any other popular pages, homepage, CTAs. Over here on the top left, this is a thank you page. So someone has already downloaded a piece of content or signed up for a webinar. And I've added an additional piece of content, your Startup Marketing and Sales Ultimate Planner Kit. So now I'm re-engaging with the folks on my audience because they might like this piece of content more than the first piece and be more likely to share that content out. It's all about getting the right content in front of the right people at the right time. So as many ways as you can post that content on your site, it's your site, you can do that. Next, I would start to create an asset library, a content library, if you will, where you put all of these pieces of content that you're creating. Now, if everything is a blog, that's your library. But if you start to create other things, videos, ebooks, templates, start to build out a library of resources. And use the word resources or library or whatever makes the most sense for your audience in that URL so people can actually search for it. If you search for HubSpot resources, our content library comes up. And last but not least on this point, you should look externally. I actually think this is probably one of the most beneficial and important ways that startups and small businesses can really drive a lot of traffic, a lot of leads, and then eventually a lot of revenue. So we're going to talk about this for a moment. There's 3 different pieces of advice I have to give. Number 1, if you're starting from scratch or you're a small fish, as I like to say, content partnerships are key. So before you've done everything that we've just talked about here, go out into the world and figure out who are those partners in your space. Who are the companies that are not your competitors, but they are similar to what you do, and they're in your ecosystem, that have a similar audience. Reach out to them, start building relationships with those folks, and build content with those people. I call this co-marketing. If you search for co-marketing on the HubSpot blog, you'll find a lot more articles about it and the details here. But one of the most beneficial ways that HubSpot has driven a lot of leads over the last 10 to 15 years is to partner with other companies. So in the early days when I was doing this, we were partnering with Facebook and Google and LinkedIn when they were a little bit smaller in order to build content. We probably had 15 different ebooks with Facebook called How to Generate Leads on Facebook, How to Do Facebook for Marketing. All of those were ebooks and blog posts that we wrote with an expert at Facebook. Now, what happens in these kinds of partnerships is both of you are splitting the content, so it takes you half as much time to create it, and you're hopefully getting twice as much reach because both parties are promoting it out to their audiences. Now, what I would suggest you do is go look at the list of partners that you might want to reach out to, build those relationships today. You might already have some of those relationships. Some of those folks might be on the phone today. WeWork might be able to help you find some of those relationships and develop that content that will live for a long time. Next, we've got influencers. So influencers are a great way to get your content in front of another audience. Some influencers require to be paid. Some want a long-term partnership. Some want you to buy their book. Figure out what it is that the influencer in your space is looking for and figure out if that's worth the time and effort to put into it. I personally find that building relationships with influencers is a great long-term play for any business. And last but not least, we've got guest blogging. So, guest blogging is the concept of writing a piece of content on someone else's blog that has more traffic than you, a larger audience than you, and you can get some great credibility. Now, guest blogging can be really hard. I shut down a lot of people at HubSpot. I've been shut down a lot by other people who I want to guest blog for. It has to be the perfect fit. So, in order to get this right, what I suggest you do, check out the guest blogs you're interested in. Figure out what they're writing about, what their tone is, who their audience. Figure out what gaps they have. What missing content do they have that you could fill? When you reach out to that company with a suggestion for a guest blog, already have a rough outline. Don't send them just one sentence that's, I'd like to write for you, I'm good at demand generation. That really doesn't help them. Let them know exactly what piece you'd create. If you've already written that piece, even better, send it their way and ask them for a couple links back to your site. So you've heard me for about 45 minutes, actually 35. I guess I talked pretty quickly. So you're probably sitting here thinking, what's next? I've got a long list of things. It's afternoon or evening for most folks on this call. What do I do? Wake up tomorrow and just do it, to steal a slogan from Nike. It just takes a person to sit down and start this content, start creating your the topics you would like to create, all the different notifications and things I discussed. Just get one piece going. I bet you can do one tomorrow if you thought it did nothing else. And that's it for me. I'll put this slide up for a moment if anyone wants more information about me. Thank you so much for having me and have a great rest of your day, everybody.